'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in a place just right, 'twill be in a valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow or to bend we shall not be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we'll come round right.
As many of you know, 17 of us went to Unity Village in Missouri, and during the grand celebration with all the big people up there, who's up there but Jeannie? They found out she could sing, and they brought her up there too. And we really got to see what was hiding from us. So, based on this awesome trip we all had to Unity Village, today's talk is called The Unity Way. And there's a book called The Unity Way by Marcus Bach, which is out of print, and my very favorite long-time book on Unity history. When Charles and Myrtle had 3 sons, and they were young sons, and Myrtle was given the diagnosis that she had 6 months to live. She had tuberculosis. She tried all the doctors, everything there was at the time. She went to a lecture, and she heard the words, "I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit illness." Through prayer and meditation, in 2 years, she was healed and lived another 41 years. And that's what began this Unity movement. And so I want to read to you, and I don't usually do this. This is the author's experience of meeting Charles Fillmore, one of the founders of Unity. I first met Charles Fillmore in 1942 on a rainy autumn morning. But the smallish, energetic man had utter disregard for the weather. He was bareheaded, exhilarated by the touch of the hair on his wispy white hair. His face was strong, but gentle, with deep-set blue eyes, and a confident hint of a smile that had a way of saying, all was well with the world because all was well with him. The author says there was no conscious age around Charles Fillmore. He was 88 at this time. He said his manner was that of a young man who would run through the rain catching drops in his mouth. Can you just feel that energy and that aliveness at 88 years old? For 20 years or more, Charles had walked with a brace. He'd had an accident when he was a child, and his leg, one leg was 3 inches shorter than the other, and the doctor said he would drag that withered leg for the rest of his life. The author said, Charles had graduated from braces to crutches to a cane to running unaided through the autumn rain. That's what this movement is based on. And the author goes on, he represented something otherworldly that tantalized me, a hint of a secret discovery. How many of you have had a hint of that discovery? A lot of you, yes. Now, that particular day, they had driven from Kansas City, Missouri, 17 miles out to where it was called Unity Farm. And what the author saw was a sign that said Unity Farm stuck in the mud with high weeds around it. The car got bogged down in the mud. And he looked out, they had 58 acres, and he looked out and he said they were brush-covered fields, neglected meadows, a very few buildings, an overgrown golf course, a sort of a lake, no adjoining highways, no way to get anywhere from there. So the people in Unity in Kansas City called it Fillmore's Folly. But the Fillmore's vision was for a prayer and a healing center, a place where people could go for spiritual renewing an energizing, hear that word, an energizing center for learning and for applying truth principles. So then the Depression came, and pretty much everything stopped on this property for 20 years. The author got to go out there again. And when he went out this time, the Fillmore's son, Rick, was in charge. Now, those of you that went there know the architect out there is all Mediterranean, because Rick was an architect and he studied in Europe. So he brought that back and developed this for the village. And here's what Rick said. Things develop here the Unity way. That is what some people do not understand. And I know that many of you that have been following these teachings for a time have watched your life develop the Unity way. Yes? Yes. Yes. So at that time, there was a drought killing all the walnut trees. They had huge, beautiful walnut trees on the property. And so rather than looking at this as something negative, what they did was they cut the trees down. They made them into lumber. They had 50,000 feet of black walnut lumber. And if you were out there, you see many, many carved doors out of these black walnut. Beautiful doors. The author writes, do what you see to do. Rick said, do what you see to do with what you have. Do what you see to do with what you have. Think about what you have. Do what you see to do with what you have, and what you need, God will supply. Do you see how there is absolutely no limitation in my life when I know that? He writes this. There was an intimacy in unity that closed the gap between God and the individual, between heaven and earth, between the universal mind and human mind, as though there were indeed just one mind. So, Dan, do you want to get that ready? So those original 58 acres became 1,400 acres. And those brush-covered fields and those neglected meadows and those few buildings and that overgrown golf course and that a sort of lake that's now 22 acres, just the lake, and the no adjoining highways became this. Do you want to shut the lights, please? This is about a 3-minute video.
This place is called Unity Village. It's the home of the Unity movement, founded by Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. A century ago, Unity was headquartered in downtown Kansas City, Missouri, and the Fillmores wanted a rustic vacation spot for employees. They found property 15 miles from Kansas City and called it Unity Farm. Their son Rickard fell in love with the English countryside and Mediterranean architecture. With these as inspiration, he designed Unity Village with red tile roofs, arches, courtyards, and English cottages. More than 1,000 acres of forest, a natural bridge, golf course, and 2 large lakes, from which treated water is pumped to a tank at the top of the tower, are some of the unique features of Unity Village. Several buildings are on the National Register of Historic Places. Through the years, Unity became a major spiritual publisher with 2 well-known magazines. Daily Word has inspired readers since 1924. Each day, more than 1 million people read Daily Word in print, online, and on an app. It's printed in 6 languages and distributed in more than 100 countries. Unity Magazine provides insights from spiritual leaders through stories, news, and columns. There's practical spiritual advice in every issue. Unity also offers a worldwide prayer ministry staffed 24 hours a day, free of charge. It's called Silent Unity. A century ago, when Myrtle prayed with others in her home, she placed a lamp in the front window. Today, a lighted cupola symbolizes this continuous prayer. Prayer associates respond to requests 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, with 4,000 requests a day through phone calls, emails, a smartphone app, and online requests. The state-of-the-art Unity Village Hotel and Conference Center was the first green hotel in the area. and offers guests a luxurious and peaceful place to stay. One of the most spectacular fountains in the Kansas City area, longer than a football field, is at Unity Village. The Bridge of Faith and award-winning Unity Village Rose Garden are the settings for dozens of weddings each year. Unity Banquet and Dining provides full-service catering for meetings, conferences, weddings, and receptions. Unity Village is an amazing place to visit, grab a cup of coffee, and explore. Employees love the Unity experience, with some staff having worked here more than 40 years. Learn more about Unity Village online at unityvillage.org.
So this is a little different service if you're here for the first time than normal, because what I realized by bringing these folks out to the village was how little we can really feel what created this movement. Now, what you just saw was started by two people with nothing. They had no money. They lived in the red light district of Kansas City when they started. And one of the things that I heard folks say that went out there, and the speakers they heard, was, wow, their life was just like mine, and yet here they are presenting now. Look at their stories. One of the ministers who presented and has done so much in the movement, her father was murdered by a gang, her son drowned in the bathtub, and here she is inspiring other people. Unity grew based on prayer. It based on the power of mind over this physical world. An example was one time they were in serious financial problems as the place was growing. And they called their staff together to pray. And one of the staff members said, "Let us pray that the money holds out." And Myrtle whispered, "Oh no, let us pray that our faith holds out." And it did. Whatever is going on in your life, no matter how big it seems, know that it's the power of your faith. It's the power of your belief that creates something like Unity Village. So what I haven't done very often is shared my personal story. And I want to share a little of that with you today because I saw how the people that were out there were affected by the stories that those ministers presented. I first went to a Unity church in 1993. I hadn't been to church in some 20 years, like a lot of you. But it was a personal crisis. And I had gone to a class at Unity in Melbourne. And I remember there was this older minister teaching Course in Miracles, and I sat through half of it and left during the intermission, the break. But when I hit this personal crisis, I remembered that church, and I said, let me go there. I needed something. And what I found was it was the missing piece for me. I'd been a yoga teacher for 25, 30 years. That was my belief system. That was my philosophy. But the missing piece was you. It was the people. And when I walked in, and I remember, you'll notice I go around and hug you all. The minister's wife hugged every single person in that congregation, and I needed that hug that day. That hug made such a difference. And I went back, and I went back. And about a year later, I decided to go to a retreat out at Unity Village. And they were called AOU. They were called the Adults of Unity Retreats. I had a wonderful spiritual experience out there. The following year, they invited me to be on what was called the Dream Team, which was the team that organized it, that put it on. And I was put in charge of writing what was called the family group material. We put this book together, and I had to write exercises for 2 hours every day, 5 days. And I did that for 5 years. And during that time, I learned more about Unity. I was going out there every year. And I heard about this continuing education program that you could become a licensed teacher. And I could feel something inside of me saying that I needed to do this. So here's what I wrote. Once I had made the decision to take CEP classes at Unity Village. It took me 2 full days to work up enough courage to call and register. There was a place within me that held the fear that I was not good enough or smart enough to enroll in this program. My first 2 weeks of classes brought me face to face with these fears. I allowed old beliefs to reign, and at the end of 2 weeks was close to tears. I had to honestly ask myself, do I want to continue these classes? Why am I doing this? Why do I want to be a licensed teacher? But I stayed, and in 1999, I became a licensed Unity teacher. At that time, you had to go out to Unity Village to take all these classes. I was at Unity of Melbourne at the time, and they hired me as a licensed Unity teacher to teach classes and do work there. And so I was working in my little office there in Melbourne, and Reverend Beth, the minister there, was out at the big Unity conference in June. And I get a phone call from her, and she said, they have just suspended the requirement that you have to have a bachelor's degree to apply for ministerial school. Get on the phone and get the paperwork. You're applying. I never even considered being a minister. I was brought up Catholic. You're a nun. You can't be a priest, right? And a minister. It took me 3 months to put all the work together. And this is the first paragraph in the summary paper that I had to present to apply. I sit typing this as the skies outside darken. Thunder rumbles and the rain falls. What a wonderful day to write about my spiritual journey. Often in my life's journey, my world has appeared dark. It sounds threatening. My life fallen apart around me. As I write this paper in Florida, where it seldom rains all day, suddenly a light shines over my shoulder. And I look out the large window of my room to see the sun shining again. This has been my spiritual journey. The light always there behind the darkness. Today I know that what I once called darkness was not darkness at all. It was only my forgetting of where the light was. So I was accepted into the ministerial program. That was the only year they suspended that requirement. And I was in a class, I was the only person in that class of 23 with not one college credit. There was a judge in my class, there were 3 attorneys, superintendent of schools, CEOs. We can do anything we want. When I let go of that little voice that said, I'm not important, I'm not good enough, I can't. When I stand on the faith that this movement was built on, whatever your dream is, whatever you want to do. And let me tell you, I entered ministerial school at 60 years old. Okay? It's never too late. Never. This movement teaches empowerment. If you notice, I'm using the word movement because that's what it is. It wasn't started as a church. It was started as prayer. And it's moved. It's grown. It teaches that we can create the life we want. And only I limit myself by my limited thinking. So in a minute, I'm going to ask those that were at the village to come up. Because I want them, if they're moved, to share. Even if you're not going to share or talk, if you're at the village, I want you to come up. But my daughter Suzanne, who's not here today, I have been asking her, she's been on the spiritual path for years. I've been asking her for a year to do meditation. She came back from Unity Village, and she did it for the first time last week. Some of you got to hear her. There was no fear. All her fear was gone from her experience out there. So I want you to see the light that's shining in those folks that were out there now. So if you were at the village, come up here. You don't have to talk, but just come on up here. Okay, this is a few. We had 17 of us out there. And so what I'm going to do is ask each one of them, if you are so moved, what touched you? What changed inside of you? What was the experience? And just briefly, because if everyone wants to share, we got a lot of you. So who's moved? Who wants to go? Here you
I can go first because I wanted to read something. The first thing that we did together as a group and sitting in the audience, there's the sweetest little old man, and I don't understand his whole backstory. Reverend Rose might know it better. Sorry. I had it marked. So he started with a prayer, and the prayer was call and response, which is always my favorite thing because I like to be told the words before I have to say them, and just a few at a time. So I'm going to say a few words at a time, and I would like you to repeat them. I am now in the presence of pure being.
I am now in the presence of pure being.
And immersed in the Holy Spirit.
And immersed in the Holy Spirit.
Of life, love, and wisdom.
Of life, love, and wisdom.
I acknowledge thy presence.
I acknowledge thy presence.
And power, O blessed Spirit.
And power, O blessed Spirit.
In thy divine wisdom.
In thy divine wisdom.
Now erase my mortal limitations.
Now erase my mortal limitations.
And from thy pure substance of love.
And from thy pure substance of love.
Bring into manifestation my world.
Bring into manifestation my world.
According to thy perfect law.
According to thy perfect law.
So if you can imagine a bunch of us saying that together, it really just started the engine.
Really? Hello. My experience at Unity Village, Reverend Rose pretty much already said, and that was that I found these were real people, that they had a story, like I had a story. I didn't have to be perfect. I only had to be me. And the second thing I learned was, as she said, anybody can do anything they choose. And I loved to take my children when they were little to see what one person had done. Walt Disney created Disneyland, and Myrtle and Charles Fillmore created Unity.
Okay, I had the best time. I'm not a retreat person, and I was reluctant to go, but as I sat in silent Unity Chapel, and we had a half hour of meditation prayer, I was just gone. I had such a shift. When I left there, I cried for 3 hours. I had a release of a big kind, and I haven't come back yet, and I've never been happier. I feel so good.
See in that picture of the cupola? You got it? Okay. It's okay. We can just stand to the side. Wait. I'm trying to get a picture. Well, wait till after. Okay. This is what's called the cupola. This is at the top of the building, and it inside of there. If you go, I'm getting there. If you go inside our peace room, you'll see in there a big sign that says "Peace Be Still." As you sit in here, this room only holds 6 chairs. On the wall it says "Peace Be Still." There is a globe, and then there are all the prayers from people all over the world. When you write your prayer request and we send it in, and it's held in prayer for 30 days, this is where it goes. And there is someone in there 24/7. I got special permission for our people to go in there. You could only go 6 at a time. And so when they're talking about this experience, they got to sit in this room, and as soon as you walk in, you feel it. And they got to sit there in silence for 30 minutes. I'm going to let some of them share with you.
Yeah. This is my thing, yeah. Unity was built on prayer, and that's how we came to have silent unity. And for us to go into this little room, 6 of us at a time, it was just fantastic. I've been in a sound chamber once before, and this was familiar to me because there was not one bit of noise, just complete silence. And for 30 minutes, it felt like no time at all. It was great. And I hope that each of you can experience this one day in your own life because it is perfect.
Well, I go right along with my wife on that. It was the high point. In case you're wondering, you had 1 minute to change. Of course, you did that in silence also. And there's these boxes of prayers out in front. And the leader, the one that was officially the prayer, although we were all praying like mad, the leader didn't say anything, but, right the boxes lined up in front. And it was really the high point of it for me. But a few other things, because I knew my wife was going to talk about this one. New buildings. My wife and I are retreat people. We've been out there several times, out for the James Dill Freeman when he was still alive. And in fact, that took me back because my first official unity, you were sort of saying yours, my first official unity meeting was going down to Melbourne Unity to surprise my wife. She didn't know I was coming. And heard James Dill Freeman speak. Of course, he's quite a bit of a space nut. Heard James Dill Freeman speak, and then also met Tom Witherspoon. And by the way, I was surprised how many times I heard Tom Witherspoon's name mentioned out there. Of course, he was in charge of all the publishing for a long time before he went down to Melbourne Unity as minister. And that was my first. By the way, Bo also was out there, in case you didn't notice, standing up.
He'll get to talk.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I'm behind the red-headed, bald-headed
Yeah.
guy.
I also felt extreme emotion when I was in the prayer chapel, where we could feel the love and the prayers for each and every one of us. To have been able to be up there and know that there's a light shining that you can see from the highway from miles around. And we people drive home from work or wherever and see that light up there. It gives them hope and faith that they are also being prayed for. And I am extremely grateful for the opportunity to have been there. And I know that I'm different. I know that I'm more able to understand unity. And I'm just grateful that I've been brought into it. And I'm grateful that Karen got me in this door. Thank you.
By the way, pass the book around. It's a picture book. Would you pass the book around so people can see it?
Okay. We're gonna wait till everyone speaks, so it'll distract them. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Tina. Hi. I was first introduced to Unity in 1985. I started with the legend Letty Hammock in Unity of Clearwater. And I've been to Unity many times. Over the last few years, at retreat, in my comments, I asked for more interjection from speakers, just themes. We heard references of Ram Dass, Wayne Dyer, which is all good. But here we are sitting in retreat at Unity Village, and very little was ever referred back to the Fillmores. So for me, because of all the history, it was really important, because for me, This is what makes me go back numerous times a year. Founded in 1889 by Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, Unity offers a practical philosophy for living. We have no strict creed or dogma, but offer a comprehensive teaching to all who are seeking a deeper understanding of their spiritual nature. That's basically it. And the first time, almost 20 years ago, when I went to Unity Village, I literally felt as I pulled on the grounds, my rental car just lift right off the road, and I had arrived.
Thank you, Tina. Is it burning in your heart? You don't all have to go, but is it burning in your heart?
Not used to a mic. Actually,
Y'all have
I've
to read
grown
her
since
lips.
Bo,
I'm sorry.
go ahead. Come on.
Actually, I've grown since I've come to Unity. Listening to Rose, a lot of what she had said feels very familiar. It's been a wonderful experience going out there. I need to go out again because I know what to expect now. Only I don't think I want to do it on a retreat. I want to do it on a leisure so I can do the nature walk. That's about all I can say right now. Thank you.
Rose, can I say something about Bill? Billy saved my life, not even knowing Unity. Where is she? She became my best friend. What? Billy became my best friend because of Unity. It's a long story. I'm not going to tell my story now, but I want you to know she has grown more than any person I've ever seen, and I've been in Unity over 45 years. I love you, Billy.
So unless someone is absolutely burning, we're going to end this, okay? And thank you, guys.
Okay, wait. Act like you love each other. Okay. This time again, Billy. Let me be in the picture. Fingers short.
I can't believe that Chris doesn't have anything to say.
He does, but there's not letting
They
him.
move this way.
Okay, Bo, look this way. There you go, face, smile. Cheese, money. Big God, you know, all the good stuff. All right.
Okay, okay.
We can Photoshop now.
Just sit this down there. Just set it down there. Yeah. And we actually are probably going to even end on time. The author of Unity Way wrote this, and you can probably hear it. Unity closed a gap between God and individuals. It made God intimate, and it met people head on at the point of their human need. 17 of us went out to Unity Village. And that consciousness of 17 people has become part of this church. We had a World Day of Prayer meeting last week. 17 people showed up. The spiritual meaning of 17: insight, strength, spiritual consciousness, wisdom, desire for peace, and love for all humanity. Does that say what you feel in your heart? That's what we represent here now. The Bible, the spiritual number 17 in the Bible means overcoming the enemy. That negative thinking, complete victory over my negative thoughts. And so right now, one of the people that had an amazing experience out there was Bo, and he came back and he wrote a song about unity. And he's going to sing it for us right now.
It's kind of repetitious in some areas. If you kind of get the hang of it, I'll sing enough verses, y'all can join in, okay? Well, I don't see a color, I don't see a face. We all are creatures in the human race. You are you and I am me. Together we are unity. We walk with each other hand in hand. We tell each other that we understand. You are you and I am me. Together we are unity. We all are souls, that's for real. So just be what you feel. You are you and I am me. Together we are unity. Yes, we all are one, we're just the same. Tell each other there's no one else to blame. You are you and I am me. Together we are unity. Well, our power source is within, without a doubt. As within, so is without. You are you, I am me. Together we are unity. Together we